All right, I thought I would show off how the server-side kind of RPC methods work for Dato so far by developing just a quick little fun thing where we can actually cause the computer, or in this case OS X, to read out the title of the task server-side. So the way this works is at boot time, the client reaches out and asks the server what methods are available to me given my session authorization and whatnot. And that's just defined by this routing table here. So first thing we'll do is make a quick test of a function that can actually say something. So make something say with a voice and a phrase. And we'll just want to execute that. Just make sure it works real quick. So we'll want it to say, for example, say dash v. I like the droid voice, and the phrase is testing this. And we'll say voice and phrase. That is fair. Okay. And it takes one command.
Testing this.
Okay, so now we have a little function server side where we can have it say the phrase that we want. So we'll just check once again, say phrase, say voice phrase.
Testing this.
Perfect. Okay, so now we need a function that looks up a task by its global EU Inc. ID, and then pulls out the title from that and reads that. So first we'll say, we'll use the, excuse me, Dato user DB. We want to filter out stuff that's just available to the session, but while I'm developing, I'm just going to use the full database. So we have the user DB, we have the GUID, say voice, and cello, and I'm not sure what the GUI will be. Let's look up in the database what ones we have available. It should just be this one for this one. QE by user DB. We want to find any task that has a task title. Okay, and I want to pull out the Dato GUID from that. Okay, there we go. So now that we have, excuse me, the GUID, we should be able to pull out the task. It's actually pretty much the same query. Title going to be, we'll pull out the task where GUID is GUID. So we're, again, we're restricting the database to just what this user can see given their session. I have a placeholder here for the full database, the voice, the GUID of the title, or the task that we want to read. And if a task exists inside of this user's DB with this GUID, we'll find it, and then we'll pull out the task title from that. Let's just try and see if we get, okay, so we get the title. And now we should be able to say voice and title.
Just works.
Okay. Now let's just make sure that we only do that whenever there is actually a title, in case, for example, we don't want that to read out some nonsense. Oh, and again, this is clearly a terrible idea in terms of exposing your shell to the front end. Never do that. It's just a fun demo. Probably shouldn't even do it for a demo, but just for some fun.
Just works.
Okay, so now we have our read task function. And we want to parameterize this by voice and GUID. But the server-side methods actually get two additional arguments passed in. The first one is the session of the current user, the current session that's invoking the server-side method. And the other is all the other sessions, and we don't really care about that for right now. So I'm going to say we want now to use the Dato user DB given this session. We already have voice coming in, we have title, and we should be good to go there. Okay, so now we actually have our read_task function. We need to expose it to the client. And I'm gonna make that read_task. Okay, so now whenever we boot up in here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and refresh and switch to my Clojure script REPL. So now I'm over in Clojure script land, I'm in the browser. We have our app state and we have our Dato client in here. So we can take a look at what's available inside of Dato. So a few things. We're primarily interested in the server-side thing right now. So we'll just do, let's say, we want to pull out server-side from Dato and dereference it. And then from there, we have a few functions we can have, so add, sum, reverse, etc. I'm just going to pull out read_task for this demo. And now I should be able to, let's go ahead and look up client side, the title for this using the same command we used beforehand. Task title. And this is happening now client side, so looks good there. We'll pull out the GUID client side. Perfect. And what I want to do now is read task in the voice of Cello with this GUID. That's fair. Okay.
Just works.
All right, very nice. So now let's try a longer one. So we'll add that in. That should give us, let's look up that task. So I just want to get all of the tasks, and we'll map the GUID over them. Okay. And just to make sure I actually going to pull out the right one, I'll pull out the task title. So this is a terrible idea, and here's our EUID. And now we want to read task in the voice of Cello, given this. In fact, let's actually, oh, yeah. So we'll just read out this task.
This is a terrible idea. Should never be put into production. And is merely a dangerously irresponsible cool demo.
Okay, and of course we could hook this up to a little button over here that actually we click on it and it reads it. So let's do that. So inside of our components and our root task, search for where we show the title here. We'll make this a little bit bigger. And let's say we want a button here. So we'll just say that it's button dot read, and on click we're going to say task read requested, and we'll just so I'm going to cast this instead, that we have a task read requested, and let's do event is it's namespace to the UI. Our data is going to be the Dato GUID of the task. And let's just say the value is read out loud. I don't know how this is going to look in the style sheet. Okay, we also need to pull out cast. So let's pull out, I believe I put that inside of cast. So let's see if that's getting cast through here. So I think cast is actually part of Dato. Let me pull that out instead. And just to confirm, I'll look at my REPL, keys of Dato, and we should have all right, let's see, cast. Okay, and we expose it. Yeah. Broadcast. SS API. Okay, so inside of API. So keys of the API of Dato. And this is all going through a bit of transition, so it's a bit messy. So please bear with me. So cast is going to be get in Dato with the API and cast. And make sure I'll get the signature right. Yeah, so data. Okay, so now if we refresh, hopefully we should have, so you can see now in the browser, if I click on this now, we have a task of task read requested being sent through. It has some keys. It's not being handled at all, but it's passing the data that we want. So let's add a quick effect handler to that. So it's not a transition. It's an effect UI task read requested. And the signature for this is a little bit different. So we're going to get the context, old DB, new DB, and args. And so we just want the data out of this, keys data. From the args, we don't care about the old or new DB, we're not changing anything. And so I'm going to say our server-side method is inside of, let's just make sure that it's in there, context. Okay, yep, looks right. So, actually, double check that. Oh, perfect. So inside of context, we can say SS is pull out the SS of context, and let's see. Then we want to say read task from SS, and hopefully should be able to do read task, cello, and then we know that this data is going to be the GUID, so we'll just say GUID is data. Let's make it a little bit more legible or explicit. Okay, and let's see if that works. Okay, and
This is a terrible idea. Should never be put into production.
it's a little bit long,
But is
perhaps.
merely a dangerously irresponsible cool demo. Still quite cool, I'd say.
Okay, so that's just a quick demo of how server-side methods work in Dato so far. Obviously a little bit messy when I was moving things around. Hopefully should be polished up a bit, but the fundamentals are there.